I walked into my room and found two workers with my daughter. Hours later, it was all over the news. I never thought the most painful betrayal would come from my own flesh and blood. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if you for just a second feel like this sounds familiar, I only ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Helen Peterson. I'm 67 years old, and I live in a historic neighborhood in San Antonio, Texas. For 45 years, I have been the backbone of my family, a widow for 12 years, a mother of 3, and a grandmother of 5. My 2-story house, with its classic Spanish-style tiles and a backyard full of bougainvillea, has always been the refuge where everyone came when they needed something. That March afternoon, I was coming back from the local H-E-B with grocery bags hanging from my tired arms. The weight of the oranges and tomatoes felt heavier than usual on my shoulders, which already carried the 67 years of my tireless work. My sandals made that familiar slapping sound against the tile floor as I walked down the hall of my house, breathing in the scent of incense I always kept burning near the small altar of the Virgin of Guadalupe. The music was strangely loud coming from my bedroom. That wasn't normal. Chloe, my 28-year-old daughter, had been living with me since her divorce 2 years ago, along with my 8-year-old grandson, Leo. She liked to listen to music, yes, but never at that volume, and certainly not in my room. I left the bags on the kitchen counter, next to the fresh tortillas I'd bought at the local tortilleria, and walked toward my bedroom with my heart racing. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in the air, like when a storm is coming and the cats hide. The door to my bedroom was slightly ajar. Through the crack, I saw movement. I pushed the door open gently, and what I saw stole the soul from my body. Chloe was on my bed, half naked, with 2 men. I recognized their faces immediately. They were the construction workers from the new condo building going up next door, where they'd been working for months. One of them, a dark-haired guy with tattoos on his arms, had a bottle of Corona in his hand. The other, younger, was smoking a cigarette that filled my room with the acrid smell I hated so much. My voice was trapped in my throat like a scream that couldn't escape. My legs trembled like leaves in the wind. The world came to a complete stop. The man with the tattoos saw me first. He looked at me with a mocking smile and said, without lowering his beer, "What are you looking at, old lady? Go watch your daytime TV or something. Nothing to see here." My daughter didn't even flinch. She barely covered herself with my favorite quilt, the one my mother had made before she died, and yelled at me with a coldness that broke my heart. "Close the door, Mom. Always snooping where you're not wanted. You're always hovering like a warden." The words hit me like a bucket of ice-cold water. This was the little girl I had raised alone after her father left us. The same one I had cared for when she had chicken pox, when she broke her arm playing soccer, when she cried all night because her first boyfriend dumped her. The one I had defended when my family criticized her for getting divorced. I don't remember how I made it to the bathroom. I just know I threw up everything in my stomach. The bitter taste mixed with the salty tears I couldn't hold back. I sat on the cold tile floor, hugging my knees, as I listened to their laughter coming from my bedroom. That was my bed. The bed where I had nursed my husband through his final nights, where I had comforted my children when they had nightmares, where I had prayed so many rosaries for the well-being of my family. I stayed there, on the bathroom floor, smelling the Fabuloso I had used to clean that morning, feeling my whole life crumble like a sandcastle. The noises from the construction site next door mixed with the voices from my room, creating a symphony of humiliation that I will never forget. When I finally managed to get up, I saw my reflection in the bathroom mirror. It was the face of a broken woman. My eyes, once full of the strength that had sustained me for so many years, now looked like those of a wounded animal. My gray hair, always neatly combed, was messy and damp with sweat. My hands trembled as I wiped my face with the embroidered towel I had bought at a craft fair in Fredericksburg. For the first time in my life, I wondered if everything I had done, all the sacrifices, all the sleepless nights working to give them the best, had been worth it. For the first time, I felt that maybe I didn't matter at all to the people I loved most in this world, and I didn't know this was just the beginning of the greatest betrayal of my life. I waited until I heard them leave. The metal gate closed with that familiar dry clang, followed by the sound of a motorcycle engine fading down the street. Only then did I leave the bathroom, my legs still shaking and my heart pounding in my chest like an offbeat drum. Chloe was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of iced tea as if nothing had happened. She was wearing my house robe, the one with pink flowers I had given her for Mother's Day 3 years ago. Seeing her wear it after what I had just witnessed hurt me more than any physical blow. "Honey, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though inside I was a hurricane of emotions. She didn't even look at me. She kept drinking her tea, leaning against the stove where I had prepared thousands of meals for her and Leo. "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. I'm a grown woman, and I do whatever the hell I want. Chloe, those men were in my bed, in my room, and my grandson could be home from school any minute." She finally looked at me, but her eyes held a coldness I had never seen before. It was like I was talking to a stranger wearing my daughter's face. "Your room, your house, your rules," she said with sarcasm. "It's always the same with you. Everything has to revolve around what you want. What I want. Chloe, I just want to protect this family. What will Leo think if he sees his mom with strangers?" She laughed, a bitter laugh that chilled my blood. "Protect? Who have you protected, Mom? My dad when he ran off with his secretary? Robert when he got into drugs? Andrew when he lost his job for being drunk? All you do is control and judge." Every word was like a stab wound. Robert, my eldest son, had struggled with addiction for years. Andrew, the youngest, had lost 3 jobs because of his drinking problem. And yes, my husband had cheated on me before he died, but I had always been there, holding them all up, cleaning up their messes, paying their debts. I never judged you. I helped you. I always helped you. Help? Chloe slammed the glass on the counter so hard I thought it would break. "Mom, you don't help. You buy. You buy love. You buy loyalty. You buy us so we won't leave you. But in the end, everyone leaves anyway." Her words hurt me so much I had to sit down in one of the kitchen chairs. The same chair where I had fed my 3 children when they were little, where I had helped Leo with his math homework, where I had cried silently so many nights after my husband died. That's not true, honey. Everything I've done has been out of love. Love? Or guilt? Because ever since Dad died, you've done nothing but remind us of everything you've sacrificed for us. I worked double shifts to pay for your school. I sold my gold earrings for Robert's treatment. I never remarried because of you. Do you think we don't realize you're collecting on emotional debts? I was speechless. Was that true? Had I been collecting on emotional debts without realizing it? I remembered all the times I had mentioned my sacrifices. But I didn't do it to manipulate them. I did it because I wanted them to know how much I loved them, how much I had fought for them. I never wanted you to feel indebted to me. I whispered. Well, you succeeded. We all feel guilty around you. That's why Robert moved to Denver. That's why Andrew barely comes to visit. And that's why Why you what? Chloe fell silent for a moment, but I could see in her eyes that there was more she wanted to say. Nothing. Forget it. That night, as I made dinner for Leo, I couldn't stop thinking about Chloe's words. Was I really a controlling mother? A woman who bought love? I remembered when Robert married Patricia. I paid for half the wedding because he didn't have the money. When they divorced, he came to live with me for 6 months, and I never charged him a dime. When Andrew lost his job, I lent him money for his rent for 4 months. But every time I did it, yes, I reminded them of what I had done for them. Not out of malice, but because I wanted them to value the effort. I wanted them to know that their mother loved them so much she was capable of any sacrifice. Leo came home from school with his navy blue uniform wrinkled and his Dallas Cowboys backpack slung over his shoulder. His round face lit up when he saw me, as always. "Grandma, is dinner ready?" "I'm starving." I hugged him tighter than usual. This 8-year-old boy was the only pure thing left in my life. With him, there were no reproaches, no emotional debts, no coldness. Just genuine love. Of course, my love. I made you green chilaquiles just how you like them. As he ate, telling me about his soccer game at recess, I watched him, trying to memorize every detail of his face. His brown eyes, just like mine, his smile that still showed the gaps from his baby teeth, his little hands stained with blue ink. Grandma, why is Mom so angry lately? He asked me suddenly, with the innocence only children have. Angry? With you? No, not with me. But yesterday I heard her on the phone, and she said she couldn't stand living here anymore. Is she going to leave like my dad did? The fork fell from my hand. Fear completely washed over me. Chloe wanted to leave? Was she going to take Leo with her? The thought of losing my grandson terrified me more than anything else. No, my love, your mom isn't going anywhere. This is her home. But that night, after Leo was asleep, I heard Chloe talking on the phone in her room. I pressed my ear against the wall, feeling ashamed for eavesdropping, but unable to stop myself. Yeah, I know she's your mom, but I can't take it anymore. She's just too toxic. No, it's not that I'm ungrateful. It's just that she suffocates me. Everything has to be her way. Yes, of course I need the money, but it's not worth it at this price. I don't know. Maybe I'll go stay at my sister's in St. Louis for a while. I felt the world closing in on me. Toxic? I was toxic? After everything I had done for her? After welcoming her with open arms when her husband left her? After taking care of Leo while she worked? After paying off her credit card debts? I went to my room in silence, the room that no longer felt like mine after what had happened that afternoon. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the photos on my nightstand. Photos of my 3 children when they were little, of my husband before he got sick, of Leo on his first day of school. At what point had I lost my family? At what point had I become the villain of their story? For the first time in years, I cried without making a sound, covering my face with my hands so no one would hear me. I cried for the daughter I had lost without realizing it, for the sons who had drifted away, for the grandson who might be taken from me. And I cried because deep down, I knew that maybe Chloe was right. Maybe I had been buying love. Maybe I had been collecting on emotional debts. But all I had ever wanted was to be a good mother. Now I wondered if I had been too good, and if that had been my biggest mistake. The following days were like walking through a minefield. Chloe barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was with that coldness that chilled me to the bone. Leo noticed the tension and became quieter, as if it were his fault that his grandma and his mom were fighting. On Thursday morning, as I was sweeping the backyard among the bougainvillea that I loved to care for, I saw Mrs. Diaz, my lifelong neighbor, peek over the fence. Her eyes had that look of someone who knows something but isn't sure if they should say it. "Good morning, Helen. How are you?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Diaz. Just keeping busy." She was quiet for a moment, wringing the kitchen towel in her hands. "Helen, I don't know if I should tell you this, but yesterday I saw Chloe leave the house with those 2 men from the construction site. They got into a truck and drove off. She came back around 3 in the morning. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The broom slipped from my hands and clattered on the tiles. Are you sure? Oh, Helen, I don't like to gossip, but it's just, well, you know I love you like a daughter, and I'm worried that people will start talking. That afternoon, when Chloe got back from her job at the clothing store downtown, I was waiting for her in the living room. I was sitting on the couch where we had watched so many shows together, where she had cried when her husband left her for a younger woman. "Chloe, I need to ask you something." "Not now, Mom. I'm tired." "Where were you last night?" She stopped dead, one foot on the first step of the staircase. "Excuse me? Mrs. Diaz saw you leave with those men. You came back in the middle of the night." I saw her clench her fists. Her eyes filled with a rage that scared me. "So now you have spies? Seriously, Mom? You're asking the neighbors to watch me?" "I didn't ask anyone to watch anything. She told me because she's worried about us." "That's a lie. The truth is you can't stand that I have my own life, that I'm not stuck in this house like a nun, taking care of you and keeping you company in your loneliness. Chloe, I just want to know where you are for your safety and for Leo's. My safety? Or your control? Because since I moved back in, you've tried to manage every minute of my life. What time I leave, who I'm with, why I'm late, why I don't tell you where I am." She walked toward me quickly, and for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own daughter. "You know what, Mom? You're right about one thing. I did go out with them. I did have fun. And yes, I'll probably do it again, because for the first time in 2 years I feel alive, not like a ghost living in her mother's house. But honey, What about Leo? He needs stability. Leo will be fine. Stop using my son to emotionally blackmail me. I know that's your specialty, but it's not going to work on me anymore. She went to her room and slammed the door, making the whole house shake. I stayed there, sitting on my couch, feeling like every word had been a slap in the face. Emotional blackmail? Was that what I was doing? I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake listening for every noise, waiting for Chloe to leave again. And sure enough, around 11 o'clock, I heard the gate open and close. I got up and went to Leo's room. He was asleep, hugging his worn-out Spider-Man plushie. His breathing was steady and calm, oblivious to the hurricane forming in this house. I tucked him in better and kissed his forehead. "Don't you worry, my love," I whispered. "Grandma isn't going to let anything bad happen to you." On Friday morning, while I was making breakfast for Leo, my oldest son, Robert, showed up. I hadn't seen him since Christmas, when he had come from Denver with his new girlfriend, a young woman who looked at me like I was some kind of strange insect. "Morning, Mom," he said, giving me a kiss on the cheek that felt forced. "Robert, what a surprise! How are you, sweetie? Are you okay? Have you eaten? I'll make you some huevos rancheros, just the way you like them." "No, Mom, I can't stay long. I just came because Chloe called me." I felt my stomach turn. Chloe had called Robert? What could she have told him? "She called you? Why?" Robert sat at the kitchen table but wouldn't meet my eyes. He fiddled with his car keys, jingling them nervously. "Mom, I think you need professional help." "What?" "Chloe told me you've been acting very strange lately. That you're making things up, that you're obsessed with controlling her life, that you even have the neighbors spying on her." "That's not true. Robert, I saw your sister with 2 men in my room, in my own bed." Robert sighed and finally looked at me. In his eyes, I saw the same coldness I had seen in Chloe's. "Mom, don't you think that sounds a little strange? 2 men? In your room? Don't you think maybe you're getting things confused?" "Confused?" "Robert, I know what I saw. Look, Mom, I know you've been very lonely since Dad died. And sometimes, loneliness can make your mind play tricks on you. Chloe told me you've also been accusing her of going out late, of being with those men. Because it's true. Mrs. Diaz saw her. Mom, Mrs. Diaz is 80 years old and wears Coke bottle glasses. Do you really think she's a reliable witness?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own son, the one I had practically raised by myself after his father got sick, was telling me I was crazy. "Robert, you know me. When have I ever made something like this up?" "Never, Mom. That's why I'm worried. That's why I think you need to see someone, a therapist, a doctor, someone to help you." "A therapist? You think I'm crazy?" "I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm saying maybe you need help processing all of this. The loneliness, your age, the changes." I stood up from the table, my legs trembling with anger. "My age? So now because I'm 67, I don't know what I see anymore?" "Mom, don't be angry. We just want to help you." "Help me? Like I helped you when you were on drugs? Like I helped you when you were out of a job? Like I helped you with money when you didn't even have enough to eat?" Robert looked down. "That's different, Mom." "Different? Why? Because I'm the mother and I'm supposed to give without receiving anything back? Because I'm supposed to put up with everything without saying a word? It's not that." "Yes, it is. Everyone expects me to be the strong one, the problem solver, the one who forgives, the one who gives money, the one who takes care of the grandkids, the one who never complains. But when I need you to believe me, when I need support, it turns out I'm just crazy." Robert stood up and tried to hug me, but I pulled away. "Mom, please." "No. I get it now. Your sister has already brainwashed you. She's convinced you that your mother is crazy so you won't listen to me when I tell you what she's doing. That's not it, Mom. It's just that, go, Robert. Go be with your sister and plan whatever you want to plan. But remember one thing. When I'm gone, when you no longer have anyone to blame for your problems, you're going to realize what you lost." Robert left without another word. I stayed in the kitchen, watching through the window as his car drove away. In that moment, I knew I had lost not just one child, but 2, and that maybe, very soon, I would lose my grandson too. Leo came home from school and found me crying in the kitchen. At 8 years old, he understood more than I wished he did. "Grandma, are you sad because of Mom?" "No, my love. I'm just tired." "Is my mom going to leave the house?" The question broke my heart because I saw in his little eyes the same fear that I felt. "I don't know, sweetie. I don't know." On Saturday, Andrew, my youngest son, arrived with a bottle of tequila in his hand and that fake smile he always wore when he needed something. I knew it the moment I saw him get out of his old beat-up Toyota Corolla at the curb. "Hey there, beautiful!" he shouted from the gate, making a grand gesture as if his visit were a pleasant surprise. "How's the queen of the castle?" "I'm fine, honey. Come in, come in. Have you eaten?" "Not hungry right now, Ma. But look what I brought you," he said, holding up the bottle, "so we can have a few shots and talk." Andrew never brought tequila just to talk. Andrew brought tequila when he had messed up big time and needed me to bail him out. The last time was 6 months ago, when he lost his job at the textile factory for showing up drunk 3 days in a row. We sat in the living room, and he poured 2 shots into small glasses. I barely touched my lips to it. Tequila has always been too strong for me, but he downed his in one gulp and immediately poured another. "So, how's everything going here, Ma? All good?" "You know how it is, son. The days just pass." "Hey, so Robert told me you've been having some issues with Chloe." There it was, the real reason for his visit. Chloe had already spoken to both of her brothers, and now they were coming at me like an army. "Issues? Is that what your brother called it?" "Yeah, well, he says you've been really stressed out lately, that you're saying some weird things." "Weird things like what, Andrew?" He took another shot and looked at me with eyes that were already getting glassy. When Andrew started drinking, his tongue loosened, and he'd say things he'd never dare to say sober. "Well, like you saw my sister with some guys." "Mom, you know Chloe's not like that. She's a good woman. Your sister isn't the same person she used to be, Andrew. Ever since the divorce, she's different." "Different how? Because she won't let a man control her anymore? Because she wants to live her life now? Live her life? Is that what you call it? Bringing strange men into my house, into my room?" Andrew laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. It was a mocking, mean-spirited laugh. "Oh, Mom, you sound like a broken record. Look, I'm going to tell you something because I love you and because I think you need to hear it. You're getting older. You can't go around controlling all your kids' lives like when we were little. I don't control anyone." "No? Then why did Robert move all the way to Denver? Why do I barely come to visit you? Why is Chloe so desperate to get out of here?" Every word was like a stone being thrown at me. Andrew kept drinking and kept talking, and with every shot, he became crueler. "You know what your problem is, Ma? You never learned how to be alone. Ever since Dad died, you've used us to fill the void he left. But we're not your husband. We're your children, and we have a right to our own lives." "Andrew, I never—" "Yes, you do. All the time. Oh, I worked so hard for you. Oh, I sacrificed so much. Oh, I sold this and that for you. You know what? We're tired of carrying that guilt." He stood up from the couch, swaying a little, and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. I stayed there, feeling like I'd been hit with a hammer. When he came back, his eyes were red, and his voice was slurred. "Look, Mom, I'm going to suggest something. Why don't you go stay with Aunt Carol in St. Louis for a few days? Get a change of scenery, clear your head, and we'll figure things out here." "Figure things out? What things?" "Well, the situation with Chloe, with Leo, with you, with me. What is there to figure out about me?" Andrew poured another shot, his 5th or 6th, and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. A mixture of pity and annoyance. "Mom, I think you need help. Professional help. And I think you need to, well, to live alone for a while. So you can learn to, I don't know, find yourself. Live alone? This is my house, Andrew. Yeah, I know it's your house. But it's also the house where Chloe lives with her son. And if you can't live with them in a healthy way, then maybe it's better if—" He didn't finish the sentence. But I understood perfectly what he was saying. They wanted to kick me out of my own house. "Andrew, are you asking me to leave my house?" "I'm not asking you, Ma. I'm suggesting it. For your own good and for everyone's. For my own good? Or because I'm in the way? Oh, Mom, don't be so dramatic. Nobody's saying you're in the way. It's just that sometimes a person needs their space. I stood up and walked over to the altar of the Virgin of Guadalupe I kept in a corner of the living room. I touched the image with trembling fingers, praying for strength, for clarity, for this to be just a nightmare I would wake up from. Andrew, I bought this house. With my own work. With my own sweat. I raised my 3 children here by myself when your father got sick. I took care of you here when you were sick. I comforted you here when you cried. I gave you everything I possibly could here. I know that, Ma, and we appreciate it. But there are no buts! I yelled, and my own voice surprised me. This is my house, and I'm not going anywhere. Andrew was startled. He had never heard me yell like that. Okay, calm down. It was just a suggestion. Well, let it be the last time you make that suggestion. And you can tell your sister and your brother that if they want to leave, the door is right there. But this house is mine, and I'm staying here until the day I die. Andrew drank his last shot and stood up to leave. Whatever you say, Ma. But don't say later that we didn't try to help you. Help me? Kicking me out of my house is helping me. Mom, you're sick. You're seeing things that aren't there. You're inventing problems where there are none. And the worst part is, you don't want to accept it. He stumbled toward the door, and before leaving, he turned around one last time. I'm going to tell you something that maybe no one else dares to say. You're alone because you want to be alone. Because you'd rather be a victim than be happy. Because it's easier to blame us for your bitterness than to accept that maybe, just maybe, you're also partly responsible for all of this. The front door slammed shut with a thud that echoed through the house. I stood there by the Virgin's altar, feeling like I had just lost the last child I had left. That night, Chloe didn't come home to sleep. Leo asked me where his mom was, and I didn't know what to tell him. How do you explain to an 8-year-old boy that his mother is out with strange men? How do you tell him that his entire family thinks his grandmother is crazy? She's staying with a friend, my love. She'll be back tomorrow. But deep down, I knew she might not come back, and that maybe, when she did, it would be to take Leo away. I stayed up all night, sitting in the living room, waiting for the sound of the gate, waiting for her footsteps, waiting for her to appear and tell me it had all been a cruel joke. But Chloe didn't come back, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely alone in my own home. On Sunday morning, as I was making breakfast for Leo, I noticed my hands were shaking. It wasn't because of my age. It was because of fear. Fear that they would take my grandson from me. Fear that they would declare me incompetent. Fear that they would send me to a nursing home. Fear that maybe, after all, they were right, and I was losing my mind. But then I remembered what I had seen in my room. The faces of those men. The beer. The cigarette. The mocking laughter. And I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I was alone, but I wasn't crazy. And that, as strange as it sounds, gave me a little bit of strength. On Monday morning, I made a decision that would change everything. As I watched Leo eat his pancakes, watching his little legs dangle from the chair because they still couldn't reach the floor, I knew I couldn't keep being a victim of my own kindness. My love, you're not going to school today, I told him. Why, Grandma? Am I sick? No, sweetie. But you and I are going to do something very important. After bathing him and dressing him in his nicest clothes, we left the house. It was the first time in months that I had gone out without a specific destination related to someone else's needs. I wasn't going to the grocery store for them. I wasn't going to the pharmacy to buy medicine they needed. I wasn't going to the bank to withdraw money they asked for. Today, I was going to do something for myself. We walked through the streets of our neighborhood until we reached a small cafe I had always wanted to visit, but never had the time, because I always had to be home in case someone needed me. It was called The Corner Brew, and had little wooden tables with colorful tablecloths and plants hanging from the ceiling. What are we doing here, Grandma? We're having breakfast like important people, my love. I ordered a dark coffee with cinnamon for myself, and a hot chocolate for Leo. We also ordered some pastries that smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. My grandson was fascinated, touching everything, asking why the cups were different from the ones at home, why there was soft music playing. Grandma, is this a fancy restaurant? Yes, my sweetie. And you and I deserve it. While he ate his pastry, I took out my old cell phone, one of those that was barely good for calls and texts. I dialed the number of my old friend Louise, the only person left from my younger days, before I got married, before I became someone's mom and someone's grandma. Louise? It's Helen. Yes, Helen Peterson. No, nothing bad has happened. I'm calling because I want to ask you something. Do you still teach those knitting classes at the community center? Louise told me she did, that every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon she taught women from the neighborhood how to knit shawls and blankets. She said she had been inviting me for 3 years, and I always told her I didn't have time. Well, I have time now, Louise. Can I come tomorrow? Of course, Helen. I've been waiting for you for years. But what happened? You don't have to take care of your kids anymore? My children are all grown up, Louise. It's time for me to be Helen again, not just Robert, Andrew, and Chloe's mom. When I hung up, Leo was looking at me curiously. Grandma, are you going to learn new things? Yes, my love. It's never too late to learn new things. And can I go with you? Sometimes you can, sweetie. But other times, Grandma needs to do things just for herself. Is that okay? He nodded, a chocolate smudge on the corner of his mouth. That afternoon, when we got back home, we found Chloe in the living room. She had returned, but not alone. She was with a woman I didn't know, elegantly dressed, with a briefcase in her hand and the face of a lawyer. Mom, we need to talk, Chloe said without even greeting me. Hello, Chloe. Where have you been? Leo was asking for you. I was taking care of some things. Mom, this is Ms. Herrera. She's a social worker. I felt the floor drop out from under me. A social worker, in my house, to evaluate my ability to care for my grandson. Mrs. Peterson, the woman said with a professional smile. Your daughter is concerned about some situations that have been happening in the home recently. I'm just here to talk with you, to get a sense of how things are going. What situations? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Chloe cleared her throat. Mom, I told Ms. Herrera about the episodes you've been having, the things you've been saying, the accusations you've made. Episodes? What episodes? The social worker opened her briefcase and took out a notepad. According to your daughter, you have been experiencing visual hallucinations. You have accused Ms. Peterson of bringing unknown men into the home, of leaving late at night, of inappropriate behavior. You have also shown signs of paranoia, asking neighbors to monitor your daughter's movements. Every word was a stab wound. Chloe had twisted the entire truth into symptoms of senile dementia. Those weren't hallucinations. I saw— Mom, please. Chloe interrupted me with a soft but firm voice. We know it was very real to you. No one is saying you made it up on purpose. But sometimes when a person is under a lot of stress, when they're lonely, the mind can play tricks. The social worker nodded as if it were the most logical explanation in the world. It's normal, Mrs. Peterson. Loneliness, age, hormonal changes. They can all cause these kinds of perceptual confusions. And what do you propose? I asked, though I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. Well, ideally, you would voluntarily agree to a full psychological evaluation. In the meantime, considering there is a minor in the home, it might be prudent for the child to stay temporarily with his mother elsewhere, until we have the results. No! I shouted, and Leo, who had been playing in the backyard, came running. What's wrong, Grandma? Why are you yelling? Chloe immediately hugged him and spoke in that sweet voice she used when she wanted to manipulate. Nothing's wrong, my love. It's just that Grandma hasn't been feeling well lately, and Mommy is going to take care of you somewhere else while she gets better. Is Grandma sick? He asked, his little eyes full of worry. I'm not sick, my sweetie, I said, kneeling to be at his level. I'm just sad because some people don't believe me when I tell them the truth. Mom, don't confuse the child, Chloe scolded. The social worker closed her notepad. Mrs. Peterson, I understand this is difficult for you, but you must think of the child's welfare. If you really are not experiencing these episodes, then the evaluation will prove it, and everything will go back to normal. And if I refuse the evaluation, then we would have to proceed through legal channels. A court order to protect the interests of the minor. I fell silent, watching my life fall apart before my eyes. Chloe had played her cards perfectly. She had isolated me from my other children, turned my testimony into symptoms of insanity, and was now using Leo as an emotional hostage. Fine, I said finally. I'll do the evaluation. Perfect. I'll give you the contact information for the psychologist. You can make an appointment for this week. When they left, taking Leo with them temporarily, I was left alone in my house for the first time in 2 years. The silence was overwhelming, but also, in a strange way, liberating. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to cook for anyone but myself. I didn't have to do anyone else's laundry. I didn't have to worry about anyone else's schedule. That night, instead of cooking, I made myself a chamomile tea and sat in the backyard, among my bougainvillea, and watched the stars. It had been years since I had taken the time to watch the stars, and for the first time in a long time, I cried. But I didn't cry from sadness. I cried from rage. Rage at myself for allowing things to get to this point. Rage for being so good that I became a fool. Rage for giving so much love that I forgot to love myself. Tomorrow, I said out loud, so the bougainvillea and the stars could hear me. Tomorrow I start to change this. And for the first time in years, I slept through the entire night, without waking up to check if everyone was okay, without staying up worrying about other people's problems. I slept as Helen, not as mom, not as grandma, not as the caretaker, just as Helen, and it was the best sleep I'd had in decades. On Tuesday morning, I woke up with a strange feeling. For the first time in years, I didn't have to make breakfast for anyone but myself. I didn't have to get uniforms ready, check backpacks, or yell, "Hurry up or you'll be late." I made myself a coffee just the way I liked it, with plenty of cinnamon and sugar, not weak like Chloe preferred. I sat at the kitchen table and, for the first time in decades, I ate breakfast in silence, watching the sun filter through the leaves of my lemon tree. At 10 o'clock, I arrived at the community center where Louise taught her knitting classes. It was an old but well-kept building, with walls painted sky blue and wooden benches where several ladies were already sitting with their yarn and needles. "Helen!" Louise shouted when she saw me. "I can't believe it! You finally came!" She hugged me with so much warmth that my eyes filled with tears. It had been so long since someone was genuinely happy to see me, without needing something in return. "Come on, ladies. I want you to meet my dear friend Helen. She's the best cook in all of San Antonio, but she's never had time to come because she's always taking care of her whole family." The ladies welcomed me with sincere smiles. There were about 8 women of different ages, all with their hands busy with brightly colored shawls, blankets with flower designs, and napkins with intricate embroidery. "Have you ever knitted before, Helen?" An older lady who introduced herself as Mrs. Gable asked me. "When I was a girl, yes, but it's been about 40 years since I've touched a knitting needle." "Don't you worry," another said. "We all started over here. I came after my husband died because I didn't know what to do with so much free time." Louise set me up next to her and taught me the basic stitches for a blanket. At first, my fingers were clumsy, the yarn got tangled, I dropped stitches. But slowly, I started to remember the rhythm, the peace that came from moving the needles, from watching something beautiful grow in my hands. "You know what I like about knitting?" Mrs. Gable said as she worked on a pink sweater. "That here, the only thing that matters is what I'm doing. I don't have to worry if my daughter-in-law has eaten, if my son got home safely from work, or if my grandkids did their homework. It's just me and my knitting." Her words struck a chord with me. That was exactly what I was feeling. For the first time in years, I was just Helen, knitting. I wasn't the worried mother, the problem-solving grandmother, the woman who kept the house running. "And you all come often?" I asked. "Religiously," Louise laughed. "Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 12. And sometimes we go for coffee afterward." "For coffee?" "Yes, dear. To chat, to laugh, to complain about our children," Mrs. Gable said, winking at me. "Because we all have stories to tell." That afternoon, after the class, 5 of us went to the same little cafe where I had taken Leo the day before. As we drank our coffee and ate pastries, the ladies began to share their stories. Mrs. Gable had raised 6 children practically on her own because her husband worked out of state. When he came back, old and sick, she took care of him until he died. And afterward, she realized she didn't know who she was beyond being a wife and mother. Mrs. Rose had worked in an office for 30 years while raising her 3 daughters. When she retired, she thought she would finally get to rest, but her daughters would drop off the grandkids for her to babysit, bring their dirty laundry for her to wash, and their problems for her to solve. One day, I told them, "You're all grown up. Figure it out yourselves," Rose recounted. They got so angry with me. They called me selfish, said why did I have kids if I didn't want to help them? "And what did you do?" I asked, fascinated. Well, I stood my ground. I told them they could come visit whenever they wanted, but I wasn't going to solve their lives for them anymore. At first, they stopped talking to me. Then, slowly, they started to understand. We have a better relationship now because they respect me. Their stories sounded so familiar. Women who had given everything for their families and, in the end, were left empty, not knowing who they were when no one needed them. "And you, Helen?" Louise asked me. "What brought you here after all this time?" I told them everything. About Chloe and the men in my room, about my sons not believing me, about the social worker, about Leo being taken away. I told them I felt like I had lost my entire family for trying to protect them. "Oh, honey," Mrs. Gable said, taking my hand. "Do you know what the problem is? You confused love with sacrifice, and they confused your love with servitude." "What do you mean?" "Look, when you give and give without setting any boundaries, people get used to it. For them, what you do is no longer love. It's an obligation. It's what you have to do because you're the mom." Rose nodded in agreement. "And when you try to set boundaries or demand respect, they feel attacked. Because you're disrupting the dynamic they're used to." But how am I going to get my grandson back? How am I going to prove I'm not crazy?" "First," Louise told me, "you have to go to that psychological evaluation and pass it. Second, you have to stop chasing after your daughter trying to prove you're right. And third, you have to start living your own life." "Live my own life?" "Yes. Go out, make friends, have your own activities. When they see that you can be happy without them, they'll start to value you differently." That afternoon, I came home with a feeling I hadn't had in years. I had friends. I had a place to go that was just mine. I had something to do that didn't depend on the needs of others. On Wednesday, I went to see the psychologist. He was a young man, about Robert's age, with glasses and a very calm voice. He asked me many questions about my family, about what I had seen, about how I was feeling. "Mrs. Peterson, after evaluating all the information, I can tell you that you show no signs of dementia or any psychotic disorders. Your answers are coherent, your memory is intact, and your perception of reality is clear. So I'm not crazy?" "You are not crazy. What you are experiencing is a very complicated family crisis, where your version of events is not being validated by your children. That can be very emotionally draining, but it does not mean you are losing your sanity." He gave me an official paper confirming it, a paper that said Helen Peterson was perfectly sane and capable of taking care of herself and others. "However," the psychologist continued, "I do notice that you have developed some patterns of codependency with your family. It's very common in mothers who have been the primary caregivers for decades." "Codependency?" "It means you derive your self-esteem and sense of purpose primarily from being needed by others. When they don't need you or reject you, you go into crisis because you don't know who you are without that role." His words cut deep. It was exactly what I had been feeling. Can that be changed? Of course. You are at a point where you can rediscover who Helen Peterson is beyond being a mother and grandmother. And interestingly, when you do, it's likely that your family relationships will improve. I left that appointment with my chest puffed out with pride. I wasn't crazy. I had a piece of paper to prove it. But more importantly, I had a new perspective on my life. On Thursday, when I returned to the knitting class, the ladies greeted me by asking how my doctor's appointment went. "Perfectly sane," I announced, and they all clapped as if I had won an award. "And what are you going to do now?" Mrs. Gable asked. "Now I'm going to find my daughter, and I'm going to show her this paper. And I'm going to tell her I want my grandson back. And what if she refuses? Then I'll have to make more difficult decisions." That afternoon, when I got home, I found Chloe's number on my phone and called her. Chloe, it's your mother. I need you to come to the house. Bring Leo. We need to talk. Mom, I don't think that's a good idea yet. I'm not asking for your permission, honey. I'm telling you, if you don't come willingly, I'll have to do this the hard way. The hard way? What does that mean? It means I have the psychological evaluation that says I'm perfectly fine. It means I can go to a lawyer and legally demand to see my grandson. And it means I'm done being the victim in this story. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Fine. We'll be there. When I hung up, I realized something had changed in my voice. It no longer sounded like a woman begging for her family's love. It sounded like a woman who knew her own worth, and who was ready to demand the respect she deserved. Chloe arrived an hour later with Leo, and, to my surprise, with Robert and Andrew as well. It seemed she had called for reinforcements, thinking she would need backup to face her unstable mother. What she didn't expect was to find a completely different Helen. I had put on my navy blue dress, the one I saved for special occasions. I had done my hair, and I had even put on a little lipstick. I was not going to greet my family looking like the broken victim I had been for the past few weeks. Hello, my love, I said to Leo, kneeling down to hug him. How have you been? Good, Grandma, but I missed you so much. Mom said you were sick. I'm all better now, sweetie. Much better. The three of them sat in the living room like they were an investigative committee. Chloe had the expression of someone ready for a fight. Robert looked uncomfortable, and Andrew smelled of beer, even though it was early. Well, Mom, Chloe began with that condescending tone she used with Leo. How did it go with the psychologist? We hope he helped you understand that. It went very well, I interrupted, pulling the official paper from my purse. So well that I have a certificate here confirming that I am perfectly sane, with no symptoms of dementia or any psychotic disorder. Chloe's expression changed instantly. Robert sat up straighter, and Andrew stopped looking at his phone. What does it say? It says that your mother is not crazy, like you've been telling everyone. It says I am fully capable of taking care of myself and my grandson. I handed the paper to Robert, who read it with wide eyes. Mom, this is really good. We're so glad to know you're okay. You're glad? Really, Robert? Because when you thought I was crazy, you didn't seem very concerned with helping me. You seemed more than willing to get rid of me. Chloe's face flushed with anger. That's not true. We just wanted what was best for you and for Leo. What was best? Taking my grandson from me was what was best? Bringing a social worker to my house was what was best? Telling everyone your mother was senile was what was best? Mom, you were saying some very strange things. Because they were true, I yelled, and this time I didn't care if Leo was startled. Because I saw your daughter with two men in my bed. Because I saw her leave in the middle of the night. Because everything I said was the truth. Andrew tried to intervene. Mom, calm down. I will not calm down. I've been quiet for weeks. I've been swallowing everything for years, being the good one, the understanding one, the one who forgives everything. That's over. I stood up from the couch and walked over to the altar of the Virgin of Guadalupe. I picked up the family photo we had there, the one where we were all smiling at Robert's wedding. You see this picture? For years, I thought this was what we had. A united family that supported and respected each other. But I've realized it was all a lie. Chloe stood up too, her face red with rage. Mom, you are exaggerating everything? Exaggerating? Do you think it's an exaggeration that you told a social worker your mother was crazy just to take her grandson away? Do you think it's an exaggeration that you convinced your brothers to come here and try to kick me out of my own house? No one wanted to kick you out. Andrew suggested I go to my sister's house. Robert told me I needed professional help. You brought a social worker. What do you call that? Robert looked increasingly uncomfortable. Mom, maybe we were wrong, but it was just what, Robert? That it's easier for you to think your mother is crazy than to accept that maybe your sister isn't the saint you think she is? Chloe exploded. That's enough. Yes, fine. I was with those men. I do go out at night. So what? I'm a 28-year-old divorced woman. I have a right to a life. The silence that followed was deafening. Robert and Andrew were speechless. Leo, who had been playing on the floor, looked up, confused. But honey, Robert said in a shaky voice, Why didn't you just tell us the truth from the beginning? Because you would never have understood. Because to you, I have to be the perfect mother, the one who never makes a mistake, the one who always does the right thing. It's fine for you to have a life, Chloe, I said with a calmness that surprised even me, but not in my bed, not in my house, not while putting my grandson at risk. It was my house, too. No, honey, this house is mine. I bought it, I pay for it, and here, you respect my rules. If you want to have a life, find your own place. Chloe looked at me as if she didn't recognize me. Are you kicking me out? I'm setting a boundary. Something I should have done a long time ago. Andrew, who had been quiet this whole time, stood up, stumbling a little. Hey, I think we're all just a little worked up. Why don't we calm down and— No, Andrew. I cut him off. We are not going to calm down. We are not going to act like nothing happened. We are going to talk about everything right now. I turned to him. You came to my house, drunk, to tell me to go to my sister's house. You told me I was alone because I wanted to be alone. You told me everything that was happening to me was my fault. Mom, I'd been drinking. Drunk words are sober thoughts. And the truth is that the three of you decided it was easier to get rid of me than to face your own problems. Robert tried to stand up. Mom, we never wanted— Sit down, I yelled with an authority I didn't know I had. Robert sat down like a scolded child. You came all the way from Denver not to support your mother, but to back up your sister's lies. Without even asking for my side of the story, you had already decided I was crazy. It's just that Chloe seemed so worried. Chloe was covering her own lies. And you believed her because it was easier than believing me. I went to the bookshelf and pulled out a box I had kept for years. I slammed it down on the coffee table. Do you know what's in here? Receipts. Receipts for all the loans I've given you over the years. Robert, here are the $5,000 I lent you when you lost your job. Andrew, here's the $3,000 I gave you for the down payment on your car. Chloe, here are the $7,000 I gave you when you got divorced. The three of them fell silent, staring at the papers. In total, that's $15,000 I've lent you over the last 5 years. Do you know how much you've paid me back? Nothing. Not a single dollar. Mom, we thought they were gifts, Chloe mumbled. Of course you thought that. Because everything Mom does is a gift. Because Mom is here to give and give without getting anything in return. Leo came over to me, worried to see me so upset. Grandma, are you mad? I knelt beside him and spoke in the softest voice I could manage. Yes, my love, I'm mad, but not at you. Never at you. Why are you mad at my mommy? Because sometimes grown-ups do things that hurt the people they love, and when that happens, we have to talk to fix things. Chloe shot up from her seat. I'm not going to let you use my son for this drama. I'm not using him. I'm teaching him that people can be angry and still love each other. Something you three never learned. I stood up straight and looked at all three of them. I am 67 years old. For 45 years I have lived for you. I have worked for you. I have sacrificed for you. I have given my life for you. And when I needed you to support me, to believe me, to respect me, you abandoned me. Robert had tears in his eyes. Mom, we love you. You love me? Is this how you show love? By telling everyone your mother is crazy? By taking her grandson away from her? By refusing to listen to her side of the story? We didn't know what to think. You should have thought about the 45 years I've been a responsible mother. You should have thought about all the times I got you out of trouble. You should have thought that maybe, just maybe, your mother was telling you the truth. I walked to the front door and threw it wide open. Now you're going to leave, all three of you. And you're going to think long and hard about what kind of relationship you want to have with me from now on. You're kicking us out? Andrew asked, incredulous. I'm giving you space to reflect. When you are ready to truly apologize, to treat me with respect, to value what we have, you can come back. And Leo? Chloe asked. Leo stays with me. Here, he is safe, loved, and respected. When you learn to be a responsible mother, we can talk about other arrangements. Chloe opened her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand. I have the psychological evaluation. I have this house in my name. And I have 45 years of being an exemplary mother. If you want to fight this legally, go ahead. But you are no longer welcome in my house until you change your attitude. One by one, my 3 children walked out. Robert looked devastated, Andrew looked confused, and Chloe was furious. When they were gone, I closed the door and leaned against it. Leo came over and hugged my legs. "Grandma, are they not coming back?" "They will come back, my love. But when they do, it will be because they respect us and value us, not because they need something from us." For the first time in my life, I had set boundaries. For the first time, I had said, enough is enough. And even though my heart ached, I also felt free. Free to be Helen, not just Mom. Free to demand respect, not just give it. Free to live, not just to serve. 3 months had passed since that day that changed everything. 3 months in which my house had been filled with a peace I hadn't known in decades. Leo and I had created our own routine. Quiet breakfasts while he told me about school, afternoons at the park feeding the pigeons, and nights watching Disney movies, cuddled up on the couch. I still went to my knitting classes religiously on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I had already finished 3 blankets and was working on a sky blue shawl that made me feel like an artist. The ladies had become my best friends, and sometimes we'd take trips to visit the historic missions downtown or explore museums. "You know what I like most about the new Helen?" Mrs. Gable told me one afternoon as we embroidered in my backyard. "You don't talk about your children all the time anymore." It was true. Before, every conversation ended up being about Robert, Andrew, or Chloe. About their problems, their needs, their dramas. Now, I talked about my knitting projects, the books I was reading, the places I wanted to see. "It's because I've finally understood that I'm a whole person, not just someone's mother," I replied as I threaded my needle. Leo had blossomed too. Without the constant tension between his mother and me, he had become more relaxed, more joyful. His grades had improved, and he had even made new friends at school. "Grandma, do you think my mom will come soon?" he would ask sometimes. "When she's ready to treat us with respect, my love. In the meantime, you and I are doing just fine. Don't you think?" "Yeah, Grandma, I like it when it's just you and me. You're happier." He was right. I was happier. For the first time in years, I woke up with a sense of purpose, not with the weight of solving other people's problems on my shoulders. Robert had tried calling twice. The first time, he wanted to fix things without really accepting his fault. The second time, he told me Chloe was very depressed without Leo, and that I should have some compassion. I hung up on him both times. Andrew had shown up at the gate one afternoon, obviously drunk, shouting that I had no right to keep him from his nephew. The neighbors had to convince him to leave. Chloe had been the most persistent. She sent me text messages almost every day. "Mom, I've been thinking. Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I promise I'll change." But she never said exactly what she had realized, or what specifically she was going to change. One Sunday afternoon, while Leo was playing soccer in the yard, someone knocked on the gate. When I opened it, it was Chloe, but she looked different. She had lost weight, had dark circles under her eyes, and for the first time in years, she wasn't wearing any makeup. "Hi, Mom." "Hello, Chloe. Can I come in? Can I talk to you?" I let her in but didn't invite her to sit down. Leo ran to her yelling, "Mommy!" and she hugged him as if she hadn't seen him in years. "I missed you so much, my love," she whispered with tears in her eyes. "Me too, Mommy. Are you staying?" Chloe looked at me over Leo's head. "That's up to your grandma, sweetie." After Leo went back to playing, we sat in the living room. Chloe seemed nervous, twisting a tissue in her hands. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. And you were right. About everything. About what specifically, Chloe? That I was putting Leo at risk. That I had no right to use your house for what I was doing. That I treated you horribly when you were only trying to protect us. And, what else do you want me to say? I want you to tell me why, Chloe. Why you decided it was easier to make me look crazy than to accept your own responsibility." Chloe was quiet for a long time, looking down at her hands. Because I was afraid you would judge me. That you would see me as a bad mother. And it didn't occur to you that I might understand? That we could have talked like adults? It's just that you've always been so perfect, so proper. You never made a mistake, never messed up, never did anything to be ashamed of. Her words surprised me. Perfect? Me? Yes, Mom. To me, you were always the perfect mother. The one who never failed, who always knew what to do, who never had any problems. And I felt so small compared to you. Chloe, I made thousands of mistakes raising you kids. I was wrong many times. But I tried to learn from those mistakes, not hide them. I know. And that's why when I started seeing those men, when I started doing things I knew were wrong, I couldn't face you. It was easier to make it look like you were the problem. Do you realize the damage you did to me? How I felt when my own children didn't believe me. Chloe began to cry for real. Yes, Mom. And I hate myself for it. I hate that I got Robert and Andrew involved. I hate that I brought the social worker here. I hate that I took Leo from you. And what have you done to change? I ended things with those men. I found a full-time job. I started going to therapy. Therapy? Yes, because I realized I have a lot of issues to work through, and it wasn't fair for you all to pay for my problems. Leo ran in, sweaty and happy. Grandma, is my mom staying for dinner? Chloe and I looked at each other. There was something different in her eyes. It was no longer the coldness from before, nor the arrogance, nor the desperation. It was genuine humility. What do you think, Mom? She asked me. Could I stay for dinner? I promise I'll leave right after. I'm not asking to move back in. I just want to spend time with you both. All right, but under my rules. Under your rules. That night, I made pozole, Leo's favorite dish. While I cooked, Chloe played with him in the living room, and their laughter filled the house in a way I hadn't heard in months. During dinner, Chloe told me about her new job in a government office, about her therapist, about the changes she was making in her life. And Robert and Andrew? I asked her. Robert is really ashamed. He says he doesn't know how to apologize to you. Andrew is still Andrew. But I think he's starting to understand, too. Understand what? That you weren't the problem. That we were the problem. After dinner, when Chloe said goodbye to leave for her new apartment, she hugged me tightly. Mom, do you think you can ever forgive me? I already forgive you, honey. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. I know. And that's okay. I just want to earn back your respect. That's going to take time. I have all the time in the world. 2 weeks later, Robert came from Denver. He didn't come with excuses or justifications. He came with a handwritten letter. Mom, I know words won't erase what I did, but I want you to know that I've been thinking every single day about how I betrayed you. You, who took care of me when I was on drugs, who lent me money when I was jobless, who never judged me. And I couldn't even believe you when you needed me most. He cried in a way I hadn't seen him cry since he was a boy. I want to pay you back the money I borrowed. And I want to start visiting every month. Not because I need something from you, but because I miss you. Because I want my mom to know that I love and respect her. Andrew took longer to come around. He showed up in December, sober, with flowers and a proposal. Mom, I'm going to start going to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want you to be my sponsor. I want you to help me be the son you deserve. It was Christmas Eve, and for the first time in years, my 3 children were in my house not because they needed something, but because they wanted to be there. Chloe had brought the turkey, Robert brought the Christmas punch, and Andrew had surprisingly shown up with toys for Leo. While we watched Leo open his presents, Robert took my hand. Mom, do you feel different now? Different how? I don't know. Like, freer. I smiled, watching my grandson play with his new toys, Chloe patiently helping him, Andrew laughing genuinely, Robert truly present and not checking his phone every 5 minutes. Yes, honey. I feel free. Free to be myself, not just the mom who solves everything. And are you happy? Very happy. Because now you're all here because you want to be, not because you need something from me. That night, after everyone had gone to their own homes and Leo had fallen asleep, I sat in my backyard among the bougainvillea, which had bloomed more beautifully than ever. In my hands, I held the sky-blue shawl I had finished that week. I thought about everything that had happened, about the broken woman I had been just a few months ago, begging for scraps of love and respect, about the transformation I had undergone, learning to value myself, to set boundaries, to demand what I deserved. My children weren't perfect, neither was I, but now our relationship was based on mutual respect, not desperate need. I stood up, went inside, and looked at myself in the hallway mirror. I saw a 67-year-old woman who was glowing, who looked whole, who had learned that loving doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. Life had given me a second chance to be happy, and this time, I wasn't going to waste it. Have you ever lived through something like this? Or do you know someone who has? Tell me your experience in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so this message can reach someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is to stop letting our kindness make us foolish.